You are looking at a device purported to measure the magnitude of the population explosion in the country. Take a closer look. Somewhere in India, an infant is born, and another, and another, and another. These new arrivals continue adding to the overwhelmingly large segment of child population inhabiting the country today. Children below the 15 years constitute about 40% of the country's mammoth 90 crore population. India, indeed, is the nation of the young. But the problems posed by this burgeoning young population have become unsurmountable. The picture is not so rosy on the health and nutritional front. Most of our children begin their lives with several handicaps. 1 out of every 3 babies born in India weighs less than the desirable 2.5 kgs at birth. These low birth weight babies become susceptible to a host of infectious diseases too soon in their lives. Infant mortality rate in India is alarmingly high. The vicious cycle of poverty, malnutrition, illiteracy entraps these disadvantaged lot. Sadly today, India is believed to have about 75 million malnourished children, perhaps the highest in the world. The nutritional demands of our young population are rarely met. Several millions of our children silently suffer the onslaughts of varying forms of malnutrition. Emaciated and stunted growth, vitamin A, iron, and calcium deficiencies are commonly seen among our children. In short, the quality of life of India's children is far from satisfactory. Why this malnutrition? Nutritionists say that it is the failure to wean our children at the right time which is a major cause of undernutrition. Talking about weaning,
the weaning food. When we look at the definition of a weaning food, we find it is all webbed into family, mother, kitchen, and the affection. These 4 items cannot be taken away from a weaning food, and therefore, whatever we do in the present technology, we need to imbibe these 4 angles to a weaning food. How much we can incorporate these 4 angles to a weaning food depends upon the success of that weaning food. Now, if you look at the changes that takes place in a weaning food during its preparation all the way up to consumption, one sees that it has to be easily digestible, it has to be hygienic, it has to be cost effective, it has to be also acceptable to the child. And these parameters have to be always borne in mind in the preparation and the manufacture of weaning food.
The use of malted or amylase-rich foods in the preparation of weaning foods has been the hallmark of research in infant and child feeding. The most ideal combination in the making of a cost-effective, tasty, nutritious, and culturally acceptable weaning food is the use of sprouted ragi and green gram. Dr. Maleshi says,
in this part of India, especially southern part, where finger millet or ragi is grown, the ragi malt or the material known as vadda ragi hittu is fed traditionally. The advantages our ancestors have noticed in this finger millet is, it is rich in calcium and it has got a very good quality protein, especially the sulfur rich amino acids, and this ragi is little low in protein content. So, that is always blended with protein rich materials, legumes, and preferably the green gram. As I mentioned, ragi has a good quality protein, but the protein content is low, whereas the green gram is rich in protein. It has around 20 to 24% protein, and its protein is of very high biological value. Then its carbohydrates are easily digestible, and green gram is the cereal, is the legume which has very little flatulence. Instead of blending and making a food out of the raw materials, if you process it, especially if you sprout it, the food prepared will be of very good quality, because sprouting or germination of the cereals and legumes increase their protein and carbohydrate digestibility, enhances some of their vitamin contents, and improves the bioavailability of the minerals and other nutrients. Then it improves the taste and flavor also. And this is one of the traditional technologies, so the household mothers can prepare in the household, and the food prepared will be easily acceptable without any taboos.
The weaning food prepared by blending malted green gram and ragi is undoubtedly superior to most of the commercially available brands in the market. Let us look at the different stages of preparing ragi and green gram based food supplement right at our home. Ragi and green gram are first cleaned thoroughly in water. The floatings consisting of some lighter particles are removed. Add some more water and clean it further. Leave these cleaned grains overnight for soaking. Clean them again in water. Throw away whatever floatings are present. By now, whatever odor is present in the grains also gets eliminated. Now, spread ragi and green gram separately on a cloth or gunny bag. Leave them to germinate and develop sprouts. Cover the grains with another cloth and keep sprinkling water over the cloth to keep grains wet and to enable healthy germination. About 1 day for green gram and 2 days for ragi are sufficient for germination and development of sprouts. Now leave the sprouted grains for drying in the sun. After the grains are sun-dried, they are derooted. Crush the grains by hand. Green gram gets completely dehusked. Ragi grains require winnowing. The next stage in the making of malted ragi and green gram based weaning food is kilning or toasting. Derooted ragi and green gram are mildly toasted on slow fire. Toasting develops a fine aroma and flavor in the grains. The toasted grains are then taken for grinding. Green gram is directly grounded. But ragi is first moistened with water. If ragi is not moistened, then the husk also gets powdered, and consequently the fiber content increases. Presence of fiber in weaning food is undesirable, as it makes the baby's food bulkier and hinders the baby's digestion. Ragi is then sieved after grinding. The texture of malted ragi's flour should be like that of wheat flour. Preferably, use 44 size mesh for sieving. Now both ragi and green gram are ready for blending. take 2 parts of ragi flour and 1 part of green gram flour and mix it thoroughly. You may preserve this mixture in airtight containers and use them whenever required. Just prior to feeding this weaning food to your child, cook this mixture on slow fire. Add some sugar and keep stirring. Then add pre-boiled milk or milk powder or water to make a thin slurry. This slurry is an ideal weaning for your child. What we have seen till now is the traditional method of preparing nutritious weaning food at home. There are many modern methods of preparing weaning foods like roller drying or extrusion cooking methods. But there is one major difference between the product prepared using malted grain and the product made using roller drying method. This difference lies in the dietary bulk of the slurry prepared. What is meant by the dietary bulk of weaning food? Dr. Malleshi, while talking of dietary bulk, says,
the concept of dietary bulk is explained with the help of this food slurry prepared here. This is a roller dried food which has high dietary bulk, and this is a malted weaning food which has low dietary bulk. Both the slurries, they contain almost equal quantity of the nutrients, but the roller dried food is very thick and it is difficult to feed, and when the child eats the roller dried food of high dietary bulk, it eats less solids, nutrients, but more water, whereas when it eats when it is fed with malted weaning food, it is getting more nutrients and more vitamins, minerals and all, and this to the older child the quantity can be still increased, so that almost double the nutrients than the roller dried food can be fed with malted weaning food. The dietary bulk of the weaning foods can be measured in terms of viscosity. The viscosity of the roller dried foods at about 15% slurry concentration is very high, that is about 3000 centipoise, whereas the viscosity of the malted weaning food at the same consistency is relatively very low, it is about 250 centipoise only.
Those who can afford to use the commercially available processed weaning foods can further enhance the quality of the gruel by adding a little malted cereal to the tinned food. As you have already seen, the slurry made out of these formula-based foods is thick and hence is of high dietary bulk. But by mixing small quantity of cereal malt, say about 10% of ragi malt, to the blends of weaning foods, and cooked slowly on fire after adding warm water or milk, the malt enzymes will break down the starch and reduce the viscosity, in turn thinning down the paste. Weaning food prepared in this way is much sweeter than the original product, besides being nutritionally rich. These cereal malts used to reduce the dietary bulk are also called as amylase-rich foods or ARF. Calorie gap existing in the dietaries of our young children is one major reason for the prevalence of rampant undernutrition in the country. Energy food formulation based on cereal and legume combination is one good way of bridging this calorie gap. CFTRI has developed a technology in which wheat, Bengal gram, groundnuts and jaggery are used to prepare a nutritious and cost-effective energy food. Talking about this formula, Dr. Shastri of CFTRI, Mysore says,
energy food is a high protein based product based on wheat, Bengal gram, groundnut cake and a sweetening agent like jaggery. The process consists of, in the first step, cleaning and destoning of wheat, Bengal gram, and then the second step is to roast these wheat, Bengal gram and groundnut cake. In the third step, the jaggery is made to powder in a mill, and then in the fourth step, grinding of all the roasted materials such as wheat, Bengal gram and groundnut cake. In the final step, all these grinded material is mixed together along with vitamins and minerals, and finally the product comes as energy food.
The government of Karnataka produces several tons of energy food to meet the nutritional requirement of young children of school-going age. This technology is provided by CFTRI, Mysore. The period between 6 months and 2 years of age is considered to be most critical in child's growth. The magnitude of malnutrition happens to be very large during this 18-month time span. Breast milk meets all the nutritional requirements of the baby for first 4 to 6 months. After about 2 years, the child becomes capable of communicating his hunger pangs to those around him and most often gets something to eat. But it is mostly during 6 to 24 months that the child is helpless and suffers from hunger and deprivation. It is during this period that the child needs weaning foods. Let's strive to build this calorie gap and help our children to gain a solid start in their lives. Weaning foods are the best investments we can make in this direction.